Hello, everybody. Today we will be discussing Bordetella bacteria. It is not a very lengthy bacteria, so without much ado, let us start. Bordetella genus are highly fastidious gram-negative Cocobacillus. Now, what does Cocobacillus mean? That in microscopy we will be observing both spherical as well as rod-shaped bacteria. Now, Bordetella pertussis is the most important species, is the most important organism under this genus, and we will be discussing that mainly. So, Bordetella pertussis causing whooping cough, or which is known as 100 days fever, mainly in children. What are the toxins which are associated? So, let us read about the toxins. These toxins are in general for Bordetella genus. So the toxins are firstly tracheal cytotoxin. As the name is suggesting, they damage the respiratory epithelial cells. Cytotoxin, tracheal cytotoxin, they damage the respiratory epithelial cells. Tracheal cytotoxin. Then pertussis cytotoxin, which is similar to cholera toxin. It has got A component, B component. A is further divided into A1 and A2, and B component. Now A1 component increases adenylate cyclase and increases the concentration of cyclic AMP. A2 brings about fragment A and fragment B together, whereas fragment B attaches to the cells which they are going to attack. Then adenylate cyclase toxin, it activates CAMP and it impairs host immune function. Adenylate cyclase toxin. Then dermonecrotic toxin, it causes damage to respiratory mucosa. Endotoxin is similar to lipopolysaccharide and it has got adhesins such as filamentous heme agglutinin, pertactin, Fimbriae pili agglutinogens, and also Bordetella preventing killing antigen protein. Okay, so these are the toxins which are present in Bordetella. Then pertussis toxin. Pertussis toxin, we read the mechanism is same as the cholera toxin. It can induce T cell mitogenicity and heme agglutination. It can also cause respiratory epithelial cell adhesion, and it increases insulin release, which can cause hypoglycemia, and it inhibits neutrophil oxidative burst and monocyte migration. Then when we talk about clinical manifestations, the incubation period is large. It is 7 to 10 days, and the disease is classified in 3 phases. Catarrhal phase, it is highly infectious, and smear and culture here are positive. It shows common cold like symptoms only. Paroxysmal phase, it is less infectious. Smear and culture may be negative, and it shows specific symptoms like whooping cough and post-tussive vomiting. And convalescent stage, the coughing frequency and severity is reduced. It gradually decreases. Okay, then what is basically whoop and what are these coughings? We can say basically in a single expiration there is 5 to 10 repetitive episodes of spasmodic coughs, and a whooping sound occurs because after these coughs, repetitive coughs, glottis is closed and a rapid inspiration takes place, so that leads to the whoop sound. Now what is paroxysm? Basically the whooping cough paroxysm, it precipitates by noise or by eating or by any kind of physical contact. Frequency is variable, but it gets worse at night, and during spasm there is neck vein distension, bulging of eyes, protruding of tongue, and cyanosis. Fever is uncommon in paroxysms. Then complications, most commonly it is seen in infants. Because of the pressure effects of the repetitive coughs, it can cause subconjunctival hemorrhage, hernia, pneumothorax, rib fracture, and petechiae. And secondary infection manifestation is pneumonia. Pneumonia occurs as a secondary infection. There are neurological complications also associated with whooping cough, which are convulsions and coma. Now, when I talk about epidemiology, humans are the exclusive reservoir. Sources are the catarrhal stage, as we read, it is very infectious. Age less than 5 years, children are more susceptible to the disease. Infection or a vaccine do not guarantee a lifelong immunity, and mode of transmission are through droplet infection. Now, what is the lab diagnosis? Since it is a manifestation of the respiratory tract, so nasopharyngeal secretions are the best lab specimens, but throat and sputum specimens, these are unacceptable, and nasopharyngeal aspiration and even per nasal swab can be accepted. 6 swabs should be taken at a gap of 1 to 2 days. A cotton swab is contraindicatory because the fatty acids which are released from cotton, they inhibit growth. So we can rather use charcoal impregnated cotton swab, or we can use Dacron and rayon swabs. Okay, now culture for lab diagnosis. If we talk the methods, culture is the gold standard. These are strictly aerobic, these are fastidious, and the medium which we use, which is the medium of choice, is Regan and Lowy medium. Regan and Lowy medium, and it is composed of charcoal agar plus 10% horse blood plus cephalexin. Charcoal agar plus 10% horse blood plus cephalexin, and the colonies which we observe, these are classically called as mercury drops or bisected pearls appearance. They have mercury drops or bisected pearls appearance. Why they are called so? Because they are grayish white, convex and shiny, and they appear after 3 to 5 days. And in case of the paroxysmal stage, these are generally absent. We see them mainly in the catarrhal stage. Okay, then culture smear gram-negative cocobacilli which have a classical thumbprint appearance. Direct detection can be done by direct immunofluorescence test, where we use fluorescent coated antibodies, but since its specificity as well as sensitivity are low, we do not use it widely. Molecular methods, PCR is a classical method. It has high sensitivity, it has high specificity, and it is also rapid. Typing, which is done basically for epidemiology studies, we have serotyping and genotyping, and we can also use detection of serum antibodies as a method of lab diagnosis. Now treatment, since it is a toxin mediated disease, so antibiotics are not very helpful, but they can still be used in the reduction of the amount of bacteria from the respiratory tract. So the antibiotics which we use are macrolides, or if the person is resistant to macrolides, we can use cotrimoxazole. In macrolides, we can use erythromycin or azithromycin. Erythromycin is also used for chemoprophylaxis. Now immunoprophylaxis, we know the DPT vaccine is used. DPT vaccine is used along with diphtheria toxoid and tetanus toxoid. It is a whole cell pertussis vaccine, which is the primary dose is given after 6, 10 and 14 weeks of birth, and the booster doses are given after 1 year and 5 years. Basically, the pertussis component or the whole cell component is an adjuvant, but it has certain adverse effects also, like it can cause fever, and at the injection site there can occur pain and erythema, and also some neurological complications. So contraindications are not more than 5 to 6 year age children, if the person shows previous hypersensitivity, or if the person is predisposed to any other neurological disorder, or has a history of it, or has or in the family there is someone who suffers from epilepsy. So what is a replacement of that which can be given to children of age more than 5 to 6 years and has less side effects and even same efficacy? So we have the acellular pertussis vaccine. It is not whole cell, it uses pertussis toxoid rather, with 2 or more bacterial components such as FHA, Fimbriae and pertactin. So it has the same efficacy. It can be given to children more than 5 to 6 years of age, and it is available as DAPT along with pertussis toxoid, along with tetanus toxoid and diphtheria toxoid. That was all for Bordetella bacteria. Thank you so much.